Ruthless Compassion is a podcast that shows you how to become fiercely kind. I'm the host, Dr. Marcia Sirota, and in each episode, I get into it with experts and regular folks about the things that get in the way of what we want. Things like addiction and mental health, isolation and loneliness, difficult family and work relationships, and the importance of self-care. I want to help you overcome the obstacles to living your best life, and I want to inspire you to become a powerful kindness warrior. Born and raised in Guelph, Ontario, Matthew McLaughlin learned early on that his strengths lay in the arts and the creation process. After attending the University of Guelph, where he majored in theatre studies and minored in studio arts, Matthew ventured to Toronto and landed his first job with a television production company. It was there that he learned the inner workings of the television industry. After being encouraged to attend development meetings and being coached on the pitching process, Matthew began writing concepts of his own. With great guidance and encouragement from others, Matthew stepped into the director's chair, making his ideas come to life in a moving frame. In 2010, Matthew started Bulldog Productions, a full-service production company specializing in commercial campaigns, documentaries, and short films. Among the many hats he wears is copywriter, director, producer, director of photography, and editor. For larger productions, he has a team of highly skilled professionals that he works with, so that his focus can remain on directing and concept development. Since the launch of Bulldog Productions, Matthew's extensive client list has grown to include CoverGirl Cosmetics, Samsung, Kobo, Flair Magazine, Scotiabank, RBC, Hello Canada Magazine, Much Music, IKEA Canada, Bacardi, the Movember Foundation, the AIDS Committee of Toronto, Egal Canada, Pride Toronto, World Pride, Green Space, Rainbow Railroad, and Graydon Skincare, just to name a few. With the recent addition of aerial videography, Matthew will be able to take Bulldog Productions to new heights in the years to come. Welcome, Matthew McLaughlin. I'm so happy to have you join us on the Ruthless Compassion Show.
Thanks so much for having me.
I've been very interested about your embodiment campaign and what you're doing for gay, bi, and trans men and body image. Would you share a little bit with us about how you got to doing this project?
Sure. So I have worked with Egal Canada, which is a human rights organization here in Canada, and they actually were the ones to lobby to have gay marriage happen here in Canada and won that case. And so I've done a little bit of work with them, and this opportunity came up to do kind of a collaboration with myself, them, another production company called Route 11, and the Movember Foundation, and to create a kind of like a web series, a short little campaign that helped to raise awareness for gay men, gay, bi, trans men who have body image issues. And specifically, that demographic already has a lot of body image issues. And there's kind of like this body image that is always trying to be achieved, that it just seems like it's such a high expectation that if you don't come close to it, you're almost like not accepted. So we just wanted to kind of like open up the conversation, and hopefully this campaign did that.
Was there any personal agenda that you had in doing this project? Because usually when an artist is doing something, there's some kind of little germ of personal feeling in there.
Yes, definitely. There's definitely some blood and sweat and tears in there for sure. I grew up obviously being gay and going to high school, just being in elementary school. Like you're like a liar by omission, right? You're never, because I didn't come out until first year university. You always feel like you're hiding, and you're always feeling like you have to put on this exterior layer. And I think what I really wanted to achieve was, while the layers of clothing were coming off through the embodiment campaign, because what we actually did is we asked questions, and with every yes response, we asked them to take off an article of clothing. So rather than actually saying yes, they just took off an article of clothing. So one would be, have you ever felt unsafe in a gendered space for men? And actually, I think almost every single person took off an article of clothing when we asked that question. So I guess for me, it was more about, removing a layer of clothing, but also freeing each person while that layer came off, and kind of really being able to dive right into, like, what is it that all of these different people felt. And, we had gay, we had bi, we had trans men, all different races, all different ages, all different types of body types. And we just really wanted to get a perspective of, like, where they've come from and what they've experienced.
You're talking about growing up and feeling like you're a liar and feeling like you're different. Would you share a little bit more about what that experience was like, to feel like you're different and like you're having to pretend to be something that you're not?
Well, sure. I mean, when I say feeling like a liar by omission, it's just like, I always wanted to conform. I always grew up with the ideals that having a mom and a dad and a family was the way to go. So when I grew up, and I think like by the time I was in grade 3, I kind of knew that something was different. I didn't see that. I felt my emotions were going towards guys instead of girls. And so I think I just kind of buried that in myself and didn't really acknowledge it. And I think too, like, just as a human, we do a lot of things to, if we're repressing something, then sometimes there are, like, other things that come along with that. And one thing is I ate my feelings. So a lot of, like, I think it was maybe in grade 8, I weighed 240 pounds. I was overweight. I didn't feel good about myself. My dad had passed away going into high school from cancer. And I don't know, it was a really, really tough thing for me. And then, put on, being an overweight, just having your dad pass away, and then you're also gay going into high school in 1 year. It's just like, it was very tough. And then I think slowly I kind of found my groove in high school, and I threw myself into extracurricular activities. And if I was busy, then I couldn't be asked, why don't you have a girlfriend? And, I had a couple girlfriends in high school, but it was simply to, like, be able to be like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. But I think the most that ever happened was holding hands and kissing. It was very, I don't know. It was very much like, having a beard,
For sure. So it sounds like you had a lot of very painful experiences, kind of the perfect storm of painful experiences, all at a very young age. And then you got into these extracurricular activities. What kind of activities did you get involved in? Because I'm always interested to know what people do when they feel bad and how they make themselves feel better.
Yeah. Well, I in grade 9, I think I was kind of just trying to, like, find myself, find my core group of friends. So in grade 9, I didn't really get too involved, but in grade 10, I went out and auditioned for Pinocchio, and it was like our high school play, and I was casted as Geppetto, Pinocchio's father, and I really fell in love with being on stage and acting and that whole, like, I love film, but I also love, being on stage. You have to basically, you get to see the audience's reaction in real time, and you get to, like, and every single night when I would go to perform that, every single night I would bring something new and different, because I knew what the audience is sort of, like, reacted to and how they laughed at certain points. So I'd bring that up a little bit, or in like sad moments, I would play that a little bit different too. So I felt like in many ways, acting kind of just allowed me this way to escape. And it also, like, was a huge passion for me. I really, really fell in love with it. And I also fell in love with like visual arts. I'm a very visual person as well. So I got heavily involved in the visual arts at my school as well. And then, fast forward to like grade 12, and I had done like probably 4 or 5 plays, and I was now art council president. So I was now in charge of like every single part of, the arts at our school, as well as I was also on chair committee. I was also on the swim team. I was also, and I like basically the huge joke was, and still is amongst my high school friends, that Matthew won the Love of Life Award because no one had ever heard of this award because I guess it's only given out when you're in grade 12, but it was just so funny because all of my friends are like, oh my gosh, that's so you. And what no one would really know is that like, as much as I was, on my game in grade 12, I had lost a lot of weight too. I finally was kind of down to what I am, I guess now. I had gone to the gym and I just kind of took care of myself, and I loved myself more then than I had ever loved myself before. And yeah, I guess that award, to me, it meant a lot, but if people only knew like what was really going on in my head and my emotions half the time, it was more a distraction for me to do all of those things because my real emotions were, oh, I want to be with someone else. I don't want to have to pretend, but my friends won't understand, my family won't understand. Like, you just feel like a liar.
So it's hard to be ourselves, I think, when people around us don't understand or approve. And it's not just about being a gay person. I think there's a lot of different ways that our society disapproves of being different. If you have different thoughts, different ways of doing things, different ways of being, our society tends to be very conformist, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you finally decide to just be yourself in society and say, okay, to heck with this, I'm going to be me?
Well, I think in the past, with any of my, like, I had some really close friends, who were guys in high school who were just, my friends. And then sometimes I would get really close with some of them, and then other kind of emotions would kind of happen. And I kind of always had to tell myself, like, you have to block this out. There's, it can't go anywhere. They're not gay, and you don't ever want to be that person to put your friend in an awkward position. So I never did. But in first year university, I had actually, this is kind of a silly story, but in first year university, I actually went through a really, really, really hard time because it was very hard to hide anything because now I'm actually living with a roommate. I mean, I could stretch my arm out, and if he stretched his arm out from his bed, we could touch each other. Like, it was a very, very small quarters, and we were living on res, so I knew my floor as well. But everyone's young and most people are single, so there's lots of hooking up in university, in first year university, and it was all happening around me, and I couldn't, and I didn't really want to be part of it because obviously I didn't want to hook up with girls. I wanted to hook up with guys. So I kind of went back into myself. So after at the end of high school, I was very much like, happy and content. Even though I was hiding things, I was happier than I had kind of been because I'd found my passion, and that had sort of been what I was going towards. But going back into like a new area, like going back into university, it felt like being in grade 9 again. So I felt, I didn't feel like I could be myself. I felt like it was even more apparent that I wasn't like everybody else. So I started going on to gay chats, actually, because that was the only thing that I would think of to actually be able to contact someone who could also possibly be gay. So I went on to gay.com and logged on to their chat, and there was someone who I met actually in Ottawa, and we had been chatting for a while, and essentially, I was also like a poor student. So this sounds so bad, but this will just, hopefully some people will find this funny. But I drafted up this like field trip for one of my classes to go to Ottawa, and the price happened to be the same price as a train ticket to Ottawa. So I had my mom pay for my ticket to go see this guy, essentially, and that was my first time ever kind of being able to be myself with somebody. So we weren't sexual or anything that time. We just hung out. I didn't really know where I was at with things, but it was the first time I could ever be real with somebody. And we went out to a gay club, which was like my first experience with that, and just seeing, people living and being out and being happy, and that was new to me. And I was really, there were some parts of it that I'm like, this is very stereotypical, but if you kind of look beyond that, what's really important is just seeing people who were free and seeing people who could be themselves, and this was a place that they could do that. So when I got back from Ottawa, I actually had more feelings for this person that I kind of knew, and we kept chatting, and like internet chats turned to phone calls, and phone calls turned to visits, and then soon enough I called him my boyfriend, and I needed to tell someone because I felt like I was for the first time in love, and that person like loved me back. So then the whole process of coming out happened, and I think the easiest thing for me was to write a letter, and that way I could just give it to someone, and then we could have a conversation afterwards. Some people I had like one-on-one chats with, and told them, like my best friends, I actually like had conversations with. And then my roommate, I had to give him a letter because I didn't know how to deal with that. And he was so nice and so easygoing about it. It was like, yeah, I had a feeling. I didn't want to intrude, but like I'm totally okay with it. Like, don't feel awkward. Like, I just want you to be yourself. And in fact, with my mom, I took her out for lunch and had every intention of doing the conversation, but if the conversation didn't happen, I also had written a letter. So took her out for lunch, and she's like, so what's the occasion? And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I walked her back up to her desk, and then I slipped it under her keyboard, and as I was leaving, I just said, I left you a letter under your keyboard, and when you get a chance, have a look at it and give me a ring later on today if you can. And she did, and she called me, and she's like, are you coming home for Sunday dinner? And I said, yes. Did you read the letter? And she's like, yes, I did, and it's no big deal, and that's why I'm not going to make a big deal about it. So we'll talk about it like in person, but I love you, and it doesn't change anything. And I think my mom knew for a really long time, and knew that at some point I would be coming to her. I think a lot of moms kind of know.
I think that's an incredibly moving story, actually. I don't find it silly or funny at all. I find it very powerful and very moving because it's really, to me at least, not just the story of coming out as a gay person, but really the story about being true to yourself and being true to others and saying, okay, this is who I am, and I'm not going to be ashamed of it, and I'm letting everybody know, and let's all embrace my authentic identity.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a huge life changer for me in so many ways. It completely changed the way I looked at my future. Before I looked at it being like, well, what is it going to be? Am I going to have to pretend for so long? And finally, there's nothing more freeing than just being authentic to yourself, like you said. It's being your authentic self is, if you can figure out a way to do it, it's the only way to live.
For sure. And I think that for somebody who's having to come out as a gay person, you're forced to go into the public domain with your identity because it's such a big piece of yourself to hide. Whereas I think for the rest of us, for a lot of people, there are parts of our personality that we can keep hidden our whole lives because there's nothing forcing us to show them. So we don't have a need to express those authentic parts of ourselves, and so we can keep them repressed and really suffer, I think. So being forced to come out is a terrible thing in one sense, but it's, like you say, so freeing, because you can't keep it under wraps if you want to live at all any kind of a life. So it's a kind of mixed blessing, I think.
Yeah, I could agree. It's funny, like I used to think before, oh, I wish I could be straight. Like I almost would like pray to be straight. And now that I'm out, now that I'm like, in some ways, like I wouldn't say I'm an activist, but I've done a lot of work in gay rights and in terms of like my video content, in terms of like my creative production company. I've done everything from like World Pride Toronto. Egal and I, we've done another project called Courage in the Face of Hate, and it was a documentary on bullying and hate crime against LGBTQ individuals. And yeah, I guess my point would be, I'm so happy that in a way I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive, because now I can understand not just, being gay or being straight or being bi or two-spirited, but also just minorities in general, like being Jewish or, coming from being a Muslim, or, being, coming from a different country or being a refugee. Like I can relate to those things, and I have empathy for those people, and I see it in a different light now. And I don't know if me being a straight man and not having to deal with being gay, I don't know if I would have the same empathy that I do now. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes so much sense, because I really see the role of suffering and feeling disenfranchised as a big push for being an artist and for being an activist, for being a visionary. So when you're disenfranchised, when people don't understand you or don't accept you, I think it makes you a different person, and it gives you different understanding about yourself and about other people and about the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So as an artist, I'm sure you think a lot about how to be authentic, since this has been such a big part of your journey. How do you see being authentic in the art that you do?
Well, it's funny. I've now, I started my production company about 6 years ago. Before that, I was working at a television production company. I started out just as an intern, and then kind of worked my way up a little bit, and was really more or less working in development. So the television production company that I would work for, they brought in individuals who had TV show ideas, but they needed to turn them into something that could possibly be pitched to a network. So it was my job to essentially take their idea and turn it into language that would sell, but also be styled to the actual show that they wanted to create. So I basically would turn these show ideas into what's called a one-pager, and that would be pitched to networks. So while I was there, I had written a couple different concepts and for ideas that people had come in with, and we actually had gotten a green lights on a couple of them. So I kind of started thinking, okay, maybe I have something going on here. So I wrote a script of my own, and sure enough, my production company that I was working for at the time, I pitched it to them, and they said, okay, well, now you have to direct it. And at that time, I had no previous experience of directing, and I had no idea what to do. So, but I said, okay, let's do it. And I was really excited. It was probably the next time in my life after being in grade 12 where I was excited and had found a passion again, because I loved that, and I felt the most alive when I was doing that. And when I was in university, I always just felt anxious. I always felt like I wasn't at the right place at the right time. And finally, after university and now being at this production company and being able to like do something that I was passionate about, and also, I think I was making $550 a week, so not very much, but I was doing something that I loved, so that's all that mattered. So fast forward to today, and I still use that one-pager concept for all of my clients. I always but except now I'm the person who dreams up the concepts and executes them. I also shoot. I also direct. Now I'm trying to force myself to not be such a control freak and to bring on other people that I trust to do certain roles, and that kind of allows me to take more of a director role, so that I'm not the director and also the DP and also the sound guy. It allows me to focus on a big job that should have my full attention. So I think the biggest thing about, just to answer your question, when I was maybe 2 years ago, when people started seeing my work, and I got the Pride campaign, and some of my work started getting more public, people would comment like, "Oh, you have a very definite style. Like, it's very sleek. It's very your music choices are always very suiting, and the way that you edit it has a certain style." And I still to this day I don't know what that style is, and I'm trying to I'm trying to change it enough that like I don't want to be always one thing and one noted. So for example, like this past January, I decided, normally January is like my slowest month, so I decided that I would purchase a drone and try and learn something else. And so for the last month, I've been working on other projects, but I've also been learning how to operate this drone for aerial videography. And in many ways, it's just like I'm always trying to change it up. I'm always trying to challenge myself. I'm always trying to edit in a different way, or do something that I haven't done already. And I guess for me, that's kind of what, as an artist, kind of pushes me and makes me feel like I guess, fulfilling myself as an artist. I don't know how else to say it. Does that make sense?
It sure does, and it reminds me of what you were talking about when you said that you were doing your first play and changing it up every time and trying something different, with the sad moments and with the happy moments and the funny moments, and how you were experimenting and exploring even back then. It sounds like it's just part of your nature to be an explorer and to try different things and to seek new challenges.
I didn't even think of that. But yeah, to be honest, like it's really like after, doing Bulldog Productions for the better part of 6 years, I kind of was feeling like, oh, what's the next step? Like I've worked with some really fantastic companies, and I really enjoy those relationships, and I like that I've actually built something. I feel like I've built a brand now, and I just was looking for this next step. Like, what would it be? How could I make it better? And this, I'm really excited, because I feel like in many ways the possibilities are endless now, and I just have this new zest for where the business is going and where me as an artist is going, because I feel like I said, the possibilities are endless.
It's so wonderful because, really what you're saying is when you discover who you are and find your authentic passion, then the possibilities really are endless, and you can go from being this anxious, depressed kid to this joyful grown-up who is living their truth.
Yeah, it's very true. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
One of the things we talk about in our series is how when you're being your best self, that's when you make the best contribution to the world. And when you're miserably unhappy, that's when, you have less to contribute, obviously, and maybe even are a drain on society or oppressing society, like those bullies you talked about. These are deeply unhappy people who are acting out their unhappiness, right? So when we're happy and fulfilled and living our truth, that's when we really make such an amazing contribution, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So I wanted to just, ask you a little bit more about your project, the Empower project again, because I wanted to ask you about a little bit about masculinity. We kind of got off track, and how men's bodies are now an issue, right? Because I think in society, women's bodies are objectified a lot, and women think about their bodies pretty much constantly.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting to talk to a man who, doing work on men's bodies and men's body image. And, why is it important for a man to have a good body image?
Well, I think it's different for straight men and for versus gay men, bi men, trans men. And the reason being is, in many ways, I just think that men and women scientifically, they think differently. Like, for example, I think that sometimes women can be with a guy who is a little bit overweight, a little bit, maybe he doesn't care as much. Not to say that that's true for all women by any means, but I just think that women are more attracted, or they look for the inner like self a little bit more sometimes. Initially, not to say that that doesn't happen for men as well, but I just think that women are emotional in the sense of like, they can see when someone is trying, they can see when someone is putting themselves out there, they can see when, and whereas men, I feel like initially we're attracted to the physical appearance of someone, and then we kind of like get to know them, and I feel like in the gay community, it's tough because there are these very, very high standards of your body image. I think the same way straight women take to, trying to look their best, in many ways the same way that gay men try to look their best, whether it's being on diets, whether it's going to the gym a lot, whether it's being on a regimented, lifestyle. I think in many ways gay men also, I mean, take Pride for example. It should be some of the happiest times for a lot of people, but when I talk to the community, sometimes the ones who don't have, that chiseled body, sometimes it actually like makes them feel more insecure because everyone around them is, trying to look their absolute best. So it almost makes them feel like, oh my God, that is just so not achievable for my body type. So yeah, I guess in terms of body image issues, like it just goes back to like, it can be a divide for some people if they don't feel like they fit into that box. And I think what the embodiment campaign really did was just say like, we are human. We don't all have, we don't go into this world all holding the same cards. And like, let's try and move past the exterior, because really at the end of the day, like, your body is not like, I'm sure for some people they would see it as an achievement, but being beautiful is in many ways, it's a scientific DNA like given from your parents, and like there's so much more that goes into who you are. And I'm gay, but that's one very small aspect of me. There's so much more to me than that one element. And I think what the embodiment campaign really did is just shed a little bit of light on the fact that your body is one small part of you. There's so many other parts of you that are great. And you know what? Shape and size, no matter what, I've also learned, like, no matter what your shape and size is, someone out there is going to be into you and you're going to be into them. So, someone is going to find that sexy. Whatever your issue is with you, someone out there is going to find that beautiful.
I think you're absolutely right. I work a lot with overeaters in my practice, and some of them have partners and some of them don't. And so the ones who don't have a partner, I can tell them, listen, I have people in my practice who are much bigger than you, and they're happily with somebody. So don't think that your weight is a deterrent. It's only a deterrent in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is like probably what you can see too, is that the people who are in relationships, not to say that this is like a constant, but the people who are in relationships probably have accepted themselves more or less, being a little bit like they've accepted that part of themselves and allowed someone else to love it because they love it as well. Not to say that those aren't insecurities. Like for the longest time, if I ever had a sexual partner or my boyfriend, I would always walk out of the room facing them because I always had this huge insecurity of my butt. Like I just always felt like my butt was way too big, and it was an insecurity of me. And now I'm just like, you gotta just own it, It's a part of you, and like all of you is you, so just like own it. And I just feel like, in a weird way, if you can get past it and accept all of you, you will actually live a happier life.
I absolutely agree with you because, when you talk about this body beautiful obsession, it seems to me like another form of oppression. So, first you have to come to terms with your identity, your sexual identity, and then you had to come to terms with your body identity. So, society first oppressed you by telling you it's not okay to be gay, and then it oppressed you further by telling you that you have to conform to some physical ideal, which is impossible or just way too much work to bother, right?
Yeah, to be honest, like I have a lot more things going on than being able to put, every single thing I have into the gym and into like a strict diet. Not to say that I don't live a healthy lifestyle. I'm happy to go to the gym. I actually love going to the gym on a regular basis, and I think it helps me because, during that time it's like me time, and I'm reflecting, and I like to sweat it out. But I guess my biggest thing is, you can't put your ideals onto someone else. Like I think some people, and I've been there too, where you can't help but kind of judge. You'd see a really big person and you're like, why don't you like just kick it into high gear and try and like work that off? But like what you don't realize is that like that person could be dealing with a lot of different things. It could be genetics. It could be inactive thyroid. It could be, there's so many different things that like I've had to tell myself, you need to stop that way of thinking because it's not healthy. If someone is going out and eating a bag of chips and then complaining about being, having weight issues, and that's like the thing that they always do, I don't say anything because it's not my place. But I'm also about living a healthy lifestyle as much as you can, but I also know that there are things that kind of can hold people back. And a lot of times I know what it's like because I've been there. Emotionally, I was an emotional eater up until grade 8. I'm still an emotional eater sometimes. Like sometimes if I've had a hard day, I'll come home. If it's a really hard day, I'll grab myself a bottle of red wine and a bag of, now I go for the sweet with beets potato chips, but if it's a hard day, that's what I go to. So I get it.
Well, I think that a lot of people self-medicate now and then. It's a pretty normal thing, to get your bottle of wine and your chips or your Haagen-Dazs. But I think that really what you're saying is that we shouldn't be judging each other because everybody has a reason for their issues and everyone has a history. And, you certainly had your history and there was a reason for you to be eating your feelings,
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where like you have to sort of turn it off because it doesn't ever help anybody. If you really think about it, like it doesn't help anybody to have those judgments in your head. It only becomes a divide, and the moment you can kind of recognize those thoughts in your head and you kind of put an end to it, the better, because you'll actually meet some really amazing people if you let go of like the types of people that you want to surround yourself with. Like, there would be a time when I, would go out with a group of friends and I'm like, wow, these are all very handsome, fit people. And I had nobody in my group that was like, I just thought that they were just very beautiful. And maybe it happened by accident, but like, I also just think like the friends that you make in this world and the connections that you make, don't do it based on the exterior. If you can start seeing past that, you'll open yourself up to so many more connections and so many valuable relationships that you might not have done originally.
I think that's a wonderful message. It's really about love and acceptance. And if the people in the LGBTQ community are working so hard to be accepted in the greater society, I don't know, maybe it's not such a great idea to be oppressing each other with this sort of body fascism.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I think it also comes a lot from mainstream media. We see a hot guy in an underwear ad, or we, see how there's just like this lifestyle, this ultimate lifestyle that you want to achieve, a fit body, a beautiful house, a beautiful partner, kids if that's what you want. And sometimes it's not realistic. And you don't want to be living life being like, oh, that dream that everyone wants, I'm not going to be accepted later in life because I haven't attained these things. Everyone comes in, like I said before, everyone comes into life with a different hand of cards, and I can't walk through. There's so many people that are ahead of me in their careers and younger than me, and there's so many people who, I grew up thinking, oh my God, these people are going to be miles ahead of me. I was in like this slower reading group for my first 3 years of elementary school. So I always thought like, oh no, like I'm never going to make anything of myself. And the funny thing is, like, the smartest people in my elementary school, some of them like I'm miles ahead of. And it just goes to show that, like, in terms of life, in terms of professionalism, not professionalism, but in terms of career, everyone is going to be able to do the best with what they got. And some people have gifts that will help them better along the way than others. But if you are able to find your passion and find your drive, it won't matter whether or not, you get that award or whether or not you get that achievement. It's the day to day. You're living your authentic self. You're being you. You're doing you. And I think that's the biggest message, is just being able to, like, whether or not you're comparing yourself to someone else and being like, have I hit these milestones? It's like, don't worry about those milestones. Just worry about, like, are you feeling like you're putting yourself out there? Do you feel like you're being fully alive? And that's, to me, what pushes me and drives me as an artist, is just being like, okay, some days I don't want to do anything, and some days I'm not super productive, but other days when I'm fully engaged and fully alive, I feel like I can take on anything. And being a creative person, it forces you to constantly think differently. And I think that's what I hope the embodiment campaign kind of brings. I hope it forces people to think differently.
That's wonderful. So just to wrap up,
yeah,
I was wondering if you have perhaps a call to action for the people who are listening to this conversation, something that you would like people to take with them afterwards.
I guess my call to action would just be, for anyone out there who has been oppressing their true authentic self, maybe ask themselves, like, what is standing in their way, and to see if they can take small steps. It doesn't happen all at once, but take small steps to living that authentic self. I think that would be my takeaway. And once you get to that place, I feel like again, the possibilities are endless. So sometimes change hurts and sometimes change is hard, but anything in life that takes some hard work is worth it. So invest in yourself and live your true, authentic self.
That's wonderful. I couldn't have put it any better myself. Thank you so much, Matthew. If people want to find you, how would they go about finding you?
So you can find me either on my website. It's Bulldog Productions with an S.ca. So yeah, bulldogproductions.ca. Or you can also find me on Facebook, Matthew McLaughlin, Toronto Network, or you can also look up Bulldog Productions on Facebook.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's really been a pleasure talking with you today. Very inspiring.
Thanks so much, Marcia, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it, and it's so nice to make a new connection and new friends.
Wonderful. That was the delightful Matthew McLaughlin, and I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcia Sirota, on Facebook at Ruthless Compassion Institute, on my website at marciasirotamd.com, and on Huffington Post at Marcia Sirota. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review it on iTunes, and if you'd like to be a sponsor of my work on Patreon, I'm at patreon.com/Dr. Marcia Sirota.